Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on 12 Steps to a Successful Business. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today, and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'll be your host today, and our presenter is Cliff Ennico. More on Cliff in just a minute, but just some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit national partner of the SBA with over 10,000 volunteers nationally. And locally here at SCORE Fairfield County, we have over 100 volunteers with a wide range of industry process and subject matter expertise. And we offer 3 primary value-added services to small business owners. First of all, we offer free one-on-one counseling, and you can access that in person, by telephone, email, video, whatever works best for you. And you can do that by clicking on the request a mentor link that you can see on the screen. Cliff, if I could just ask you to advance the slide. Or you can just go to our website and do that too. Secondly, we offer a wide range of educational workshops and webinars like the one today. And lastly, we offer extensive resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts. Our next live webinar will be in 2 weeks' time on Tuesday, December the 3rd at noon. And the topic is SBA Overview, SBA 101 with Selena Jacobs presenting. And you can find more specifics on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And if you're on our website, you'll also note that we have a large number of recorded webinars there that cover a wide range of business topics. And you can view those at any time just by going and clicking on demand webinars. Just some logistics for today's event. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. Cliff will take as many as we can prior to the end of the hour. And if you have a question, just hit the Q&A button at any time during the presentation. And again, we'll take them at the end. Our webinar will end sharply at 1 o'clock to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available on our website within the next day or so. It's now my pleasure to introduce Cliff Ennico. Cliff is a nationally recognized small business legal and tax expert, and is best known as the former host of Money Hunt on PBS, where entrepreneurs defended their business plans before America's toughest panel of experts. Cliff is an attorney and small business consultant based in Fairfield, Connecticut, and has helped launch over 15,000 businesses. He is also the author of 16 books, most recently, The Crowdfunding Handbook, How to Raise Capital for Your Business Using Equity Funding Portals. I'll now turn it over to Cliff. Cliff, it's all yours.
Hey, thanks, Bob, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I've been a big fan of the SCORE program for many years. This is the 42nd year now that I have been doing SCORE programs around the country, and it's always a great pleasure to talk to this audience. Couple of things before we begin. These are just, now if you have a question that I'm a lawyer, take a look at this slide, because we always tell you what we're not going to do before we tell you what we're going to do. First of all, while I am a very big fan of the SCORE program, and I participate in a lot of their activities, I myself am not legally affiliated with SCORE in any way. So anything you hear on this program is entirely mine. It is not an official statement on behalf of anyone from SCORE. The second one, though, is the more important one. We are going to get into some legal and tax stuff in this program, although in a very general way. While there's a very big difference between giving legal information and giving legal advice. Legal information is, hey, this is what the law is generally all about, which is what we're going to be doing today. Legal advice is, Bob, this is what you should be doing, and Jeff, this is why you should be doing something different. I can't really do that on a program like this. You would have to retain my service as an attorney in order to get that kind of service. So if you hear something on this program and it sounds like a good idea, and you do it and it doesn't work, and your business fails, you go bankrupt, your spouse divorces you, the kids aren't talking to you, the dog's peeing on your leg, and you're living in a diaper box under the Brooklyn Bridge, you cannot sue anybody on this program. That's the message here. One of the little disclaimer I'm going to say, this is going to be a very fast-paced program. We're going to be covering a lot of ground in a very short period of time. I could easily do a 1-hour program on each one of the slides that you are going to be watching for the next hour. This is sort of an introductory program. It is a condensation of a 6-hour program that I have actually posted on YouTube. It is 6 1-hour videos. If you go to YouTube and type in Cliff Ennico, you'll see I've got about 52 one-hour videos for people starting a small business of any kind. If you type in Sif Cliff Ennico, starting your own business in quotes, you probably will get to all six parts of the program. I also make this program available as a DVD, and if anyone's interested in that, please send an email to me at the address which will appear at the end of the program. So let's begin. Okay, introduction. Okay, we're going to be talking here about 12 steps here, and just like any 12-step program, the first step is recognizing that you have a problem. Okay. This is not step one. This is the thing you do before you get to step one, which is deciding whether you're the right kind of person to run a small business. As someone who has launched 15,000 or more small businesses in his career, as Bob said, I see a lot of what works and what doesn't work, and the people who succeed and the people who do not. And while this is not scientific, and I can't back this up with statistics in any way, the characteristics that I see in virtually all my successful clients, which I do not see in my non-successful clients, the ones that crash and burn, boil down to these three things: cynicism, insecurity, and ruthlessness. Now, these are not always nice words. Okay, cynicism, let's take them one by one. Cynicism is looking at the world the way it is, in a brutally realistic way. A cynical person is not someone who's taken in by illusions or dreams or romantic notions of how the world works. This is somebody who not looks at the world through rose-colored glasses. They look at the world through a microscope. Cynical people are not people who get carried away by, oh, well, you know what? Because I like something, other people will want to buy it. That is a major illusion that a lot of startup entrepreneurs have. A cynical person doesn't fall into that trap. Insecurity, fear is one of your best friends when you are starting a small business. It's okay to be nervous starting a small business. If you are not nervous, you're probably nuts. You're probably crazy, and a lot of successful entrepreneurs are crazy. But we'll tackle that in the next slide. But fear is one of your best friends. When you're nervous about something, let's say you went to a movie in a downtown movie theater, you have to walk 3 blocks to your car in a sort of iffy neighborhood. What's going on in your mind? Your five senses right now are heightened. You are looking at everything that's going on around you. You know, looking for a potential mugger, robber, whatever. That is why bad things normally don't happen to you when you're in that kind of an environment, because your senses are heightened. You're more aware of your surroundings. Where do most accidents occur? If they're traffic accidents, within 5 miles of the home, because that's where you're in your comfort zone. You don't see the ball bouncing out into the street with the kid chasing it. That's how accidents happen. Okay. Insecure people, neurotic people actually make very successful entrepreneurs because they don't get complacent about things. And last but not least, now, ruthlessness. Now, this isn't kind of an ugly word, but if you look it up, I'm going to give you a challenge. Look it up in the dictionary or on Wikipedia. It does not mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean unethical or sleazy or anything like that. It's just another way of saying heedless or reckless. A ruthless person is someone who goes through life not really worrying too much about what the consequences of their action is going to be. Those of you who are familiar with the phrase attributed to Mark Zuckerberg, we move fast and break things, that is what this attitude is intended to express. Some people call it drive, some people call it determination, but being a cynical person, I like to call it exactly what it is. A ruthless person is a 3-year-old child is a perfectly ruthless individual, and no one would ever say that a 3-year-old child is unethical, or they don't have the moral judgment at that age. But if they see something they want, they go for it, and they don't worry about what mom's going to do to them later on, or give them a timeout or whatever they do nowadays. They just do it. And all of us were like that at one point, but we were socialized away from it by our teachers, by our parents. It is very difficult for someone my age to launch an entrepreneurial business because, quite frankly, we don't have that fearlessness now. We're too aware of what the consequences of our actions are going to be. Being a successful entrepreneur involves, to some extent, extent, getting back to your inner 3-year-old. Being successful in politics, by the way, I think I would also suggest this is a good formula for people who are very successful in politics, but we don't go there. Score programs are always very apolitical. Okay, I did warn you I have a sense of humor, by the way, which you must take with a grain of salt sometimes. Okay, so now let's start going through the 12 questions, and it's very important when you're focused on these 12 questions, it's very important that you do them in order. The order is very important. Most people that I meet when they're starting a business for the first time, they get the questions right. They're asking the right questions, but they're asking them in the wrong order, which is why they get confused about things. If you ask the questions in this order, you don't get confused. Also, too, you tackle them one at a time. You do not jump around. You focus on question number one, and until you get the answer to question number one that you're satisfied with, you don't go on to question two. Then when you do, you move on to question two, and again, you focus on question two until you get the answer you're satisfied with, and then you move on to question three, and you keep going until you get to question number 12. And if you get stuck on any one of these questions, by the way, if you get stuck, say, on question 5 or something like that, the worst thing you could do is to keep going and move on. Stick with question 5. Because when you do, one of two things is going to happen. Either you'll get the answer to question 5, which will enable you to move on to question 6, or, and this happens 50% of the time when you're doing this analysis, you realize that there is no answer to question number 5, and that is why the business isn't going to work. This is how you weed out bad ideas. You have a question 5 problem and it cannot be solved, which is why this business is not going to work. You should scrap the plan and look at something else that might get you all the way. If you make it all the way to question 12, then chances are you probably have a business plan that is going to work. This is business planning, is what I'm teaching. The answer, every business needs a business plan, but really, you don't need a big book with index tabs and all this kind of stuff. All you need are the answers, your best answers to these 12 questions, and you have a business plan. That's a very satisfactory business plan. I've actually had clients submit me their business plans with the questions and their best answers. That's a perfectly valid business plan. Okay, so let's begin with the questions. And question number 1, who are my target markets? Now you're saying, who are your customers? Somebody's going to go, wait a minute, hold it. Isn't there a question before this? Don't we have to know kind of what the product or service is before we can figure out who the customers are going to be? The answer to that question, believe it or not, is no. One of the worst things you could do is build a product and then go scrambling around looking for people to buy it. Because when you do it that way, not half the time you realize nobody really wants to buy it. So who are my target markets here? Who are the people who will buy anything from you? Those of you who went to high school, you know what this is all about. Look at your high school yearbook, okay? Look at the people who signed your high school yearbook. They're not just anybody. There were certain people who were attracted to you, and there were certain people who just, no matter how hard you tried, you could not get them to like you. Okay, in my case, when I was in high school, that latter group of people, the people that don't like you no matter what you do, those were called cheerleaders, by the way. Back then, I was a very nerdy kid back in school. We won't go into that. But the point is, there are certain people who have gravitated toward you. What are they like? What do they see in you? They may not look anything like you, by the way. A lot of my biggest client groups that gravitate toward me are people who do not look like me at all, but they see something in me that they're attracted to. Find out who those people are, because they're the people who are most likely to buy anything from you, whether it's antiques or legal services. It doesn't really matter. Spend some time and really look at this. Who are the people you care about? And at the end of the day, all small businesses are service businesses. And you have to serve the customer. You don't do what you want to do. You do what the customer wants you to do. And as Bob Dylan once famously sang, you have to serve somebody. Okay, remember the old Bob Dylan song? Who are those people that you care about, that you want to serve? Whose lives do you want to make better? Or improve in some way? That's how a lot of successful businesses get started. And it's the most important question, which is why it's number 1. Okay, so again, successful businesses do not come from ideas. They don't come from what's in your head. They come from business, from people, and your cynical observation of who they really are. Okay, so Here are the answers to question number two. Focus on natural, we call these natural customers, people who would buy anything from you, people you know well. Knowledge is very important. It doesn't matter if you like your customers or not. That's kind of a myth. You don't have to love your customers. Frankly, loving your customers too much is a problem because then they take advantage of you. But it's important that you know them, and you'll know why when we get to question two. People who are simpatico, who get you. Avoid selling to stereotypes. This is what happens whenever you don't know the people you're selling to. You end up selling to a stereotype. Well, people, that group of people, they must be interested in this because if you don't know them, that's how you make mistakes. Because when you actually launch the product, you discover that their interests are different than what you thought they were, and that's too late. At that point, you got an inventory full of crap that you got to get rid of. And that's not a place you ever want to be as an entrepreneur because you'll end up giving it to Goodwill, most of it. Okay, so here's question number two. Okay, and this is why it's so important that you know who your customers are, because now you have to ask some very personal and probing questions of these people. Why will these people buy? So now you have a list of 10 groups of people that you feel you know well enough that you can sell stuff to them. Okay. Now you have to ask some very their questions. What are their blanks and blanks? Well, of course, we are going to fill in these blanks, aren't we? Because here's the amazing thing, and this is one of the biggest secrets of small business that I have learned in 40 plus years of working with entrepreneurs and small business owners. This is a very important thing. This is the most valuable information you will get from this entire program. Okay, and that is something it's taken me for a number of years to figure out. About 20 years in is when I figured this out. Okay, and that is this: there are two reasons why people buy anything. Anyone buys anything. There are only two reasons why you have ever bought anything. There are only two reasons why I have ever bought anything. Because as a consumer, as a customer, I'm no smarter or better than anyone else. You can use some of the same sales tactics that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on. You can use on me, and they might work. And they absolutely might work. There are only two things, but here's where people get it wrong. If you read any book on business, they say the two reasons why people buy anything are needs and wants. And here is the thing: needs and wants do not work, especially the needs part. When you try to sell somebody something that they need or you think they need, two things have to happen. And they very rarely happen in the real world of business. They only happen in textbooks. In order to buy something, let's say it's me, you're trying to sell me something that you think I need. Well, first of all, I have to recognize that I need it. Okay. Do I know everything that I need? Hell no, of course not. Do you know everything in life that you need? Heck no. That's why you're on this program. But right now, because you're hoping I'm going to tell you something that you don't already know, which I probably will. The thing is, in order for me to buy something I need, I first have to recognize that I need it. So you're going to have to take time, and maybe it's going to be a few seconds. Maybe it'll take a year for you to convince me that I need this thing, whatever it is that you're trying to sell me. So that's number one, the first reason why needs don't work. The second reason why needs don't work is even if I know that I need something, you hold it up and, oh yeah, you're right, I need that. Okay. Do you always go out and buy it right away? The answer is no. Okay. Even though you know you need something, you always don't always run out and buy it. And I'll use myself as an example. For many, many years, I did not have a will. Now you say to yourself, wait a minute, you're a lawyer. I don't do wills personally, but that's weird that you didn't have a will for so many years. Well, think about it. When you're thinking about doing your will, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about your own demise, your own death. And there's only one thing worse than thinking about your own death, and that is thinking about all the undeserving, unworthy people who are going to get all your hard-earned money if you die prematurely. That's another second reason why people don't do their wills. A lot of times, there are a lot of good reasons why people put off doing a will. Now, here's a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where I, a reasonably intelligent person, a lawyer of all things, I know I need something. You don't have to tell me you need a will. You need a will. I know exactly why you need a will. I'm a lawyer. I tell clients all the time you need a will. If you have a small business, you have to have a succession plan in place. I have these talks with my clients all the time. I know I need something, but I'm still putting it off. I'm putting up because I don't want to deal with it. That's not, am I stupid? No, I'm a human. That's your customer. Okay. Just because somebody knows that they need something doesn't mean they're going to go out and buy it. That's why needs is a very unreliable way of putting together a business plan. Here are the only two reasons that people buy anything in this world. Okay, fears and passions. If you have a business that an idea, product, or service that turns somebody on, that gets them excited about life, that is a sale that is going to happen. Likewise, if you have a product or service that helps people sleep better at nights, that reduces their anxieties, that is a sale. That is a successful marketing plan. Okay, fears and passions. Whole industries that are based on people's passions, sporting goods, anything relating to hobbies, movies, theater, entertainment, anything in the entertainment industry is based on people's passions. Some passions are not so much fun to talk about: pornography, alcohol, tobacco. Addictions are passions. One of the best things that can happen to you if you have a product-based business is for people to become legally addicted to your products or services. Starbucks coffee. Anyone? I understand McDonald's refers to their customers as what do they refer? They refer to their customers as users. Okay, that is the mentality here, and it's perfectly legal, of course, though not necessarily healthy. Any business that's based on people's passions. One of the first questions I'm going to ask you, if you're asking me to critique your business plan, is what passions and fears does your business deal with? Let's talk about fears too. Whole industries that are based on people's feels, insurance. Okay, burglar alarms. You ever see the ads for alarm systems on TV? It's always the same ad. It's a house in the middle of nowhere. There's a creep in a ski mask who's trying to break in, and who's in the house? It's always the same two people. Mom is bathing the baby. You never see a male Y chromosome anywhere. To beat off this guy. Okay, you never see that. And then what are they trying to do? They're trying to scare the crap out of you. Is what they're trying to do. Generators, home generators, right? You see all the ads on TV, especially in our part of the country here in Connecticut. We get lots of crazy thunderstorms that knock out our power for 2 or 3 days in a row. Home generators are a big sale right now, and it's all fear driven. Lawyers are a fear driven business. I mean, people do not, let me tell you something, people do not call their lawyers when they are having a nice day. They never do. There are two people you never call when you're having a nice day. There's your attorney and your orthopedic surgeon. Those two people you don't call. Usually, when you're calling these people, something bad has already happened to you, and something is needs to be fixed. Okay, that's why you deal with these people. So these are the only two reasons why people buy anything. One of the first questions you need to ask when you're looking at these lists of people that you think you can sell to, what are their fears? What are their passions? What are their passions? And if you don't know the answer to these questions, okay, that's a sign that you don't know your customers as well as you should. Okay, that is where I'm getting at. In order to sell successfully to a certain group of people, you have to know what their fears and passions are. This works, by the way, in B2B sales too. If you're selling to companies, companies do not buy anything. People within companies buy things. What is that individual's fear? The HR director or the director of marketing or whoever it is you're selling to within the company. What are their fears and passions? You got to deal with those on a very human level if you're going to sell effectively, even B2B. Companies do not buy things. People within companies buy things, and they are subject to the same rules that consumer sales are subject to. Now, you notice, by the way, we've been talking now for 10 minutes or so. We haven't said a thing yet about specific products or services, have we? All we've been talking about so far are people and their different kinds of people and their fears and passions. And there's a reason we do that, because that's where successful businesses come from. Successful businesses do not come from your head, from your ideas and what's going on in your brain. Successful, don't get me wrong, the idea may be a good one, but it has to be reality tests. It's your cynical observation of people, their fears. What are people really afraid of? Not what they say they're afraid of. But what are they really afraid of? What are people's real passions? What are people really all about? A lot of people, your customers will lie to you. If you ask them these questions very often, the customers will lie to you. People are certainly their addictions. People will never talk about that with you. Okay. You have to really know where these people are and to be able to hit them squarely between the eyes. Because here's question number 3 now. Now that you have this list of people, you know what their fears and passions are, and you're comfortable that you're looking at the world in a very realistic, cynical way, and not being romantically attached to certain people. I'm selling to lawyers, and lawyers are, a bunch of money grubbing, SOBs. This is probably going to be attractive to them. You don't know lawyers. I will tell you that right now. Lawyers are motivated by very different things than what you think they are. If you don't know them personally, if you don't have a lawyer in your family or whatever. Now, question number 3, what products and services can I develop with the resources available to me that will have a direct and unmistakable appeal to the fears and passions? We can fill in the blanks now, to the fears and passions of my target markets. Okay. Now we're talking about selling. How am I going to develop my sales pitch, my elevator pitch, and get my message across to these people? By the way, when you're selling investors, if you're doing a tech comp startup or something like that, and you're looking to sell angel investors, or somebody's going to do $1 million safe investment or something like that, it's the exact same process. Selling is selling. Whether you're selling a customer, whether you're selling an investor, you got to know the fears and passions of those people that you're dealing with. The longer people take time to think about what it is they're going to buy, the likelier they will talk themselves out of it rather than into it. You know yourself. If you're thinking about buying something, the more you think about it, the more likely it is you're going to say, you know what, I don't want to buy that brand. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm just not doing it. People do not talk themselves into things. They talk themselves out of things. Social psychologists tell us this, by the way. There is some hard, peer tested research on this that I'm aware of. And I talked to a lot of sales executives who tell me, if they're at a networking meeting or something like that, and they're talking to somebody, if that person hasn't said yes within the first few seconds, they're on to the next person. Okay. And this is how it is. The product service appeal must be immediate. Okay. Oh, wow. What you want is for the person to say, wow, I really need that thing that Cliff just held up there in front of me. Okay. Now, the word that they're using is, I really need this, but that's not going on. What's really going on here is that that person who's showing you this thing has hit you between the eyes and made you become aware of a fear or a passion that you didn't know you had. Okay. Right now, I've got all kinds of fears and passions, but I'm not thinking about them any right now. I'm thinking about getting through this program without making a bloody fool of myself, is what I'm doing right now. Okay. I'm not even thinking about this. If you're trying to sell me something right now, the first thing you got to do is make me physically feel a fear or a passion that I have. And right now, in the moment. And I got news for you. If you do that successfully, if you can make me feel a fear or a passion, and you have the solution to the product or to the sphere of passion that I have, I'm not going to go shopping around. I'm going to buy from you right there. In fact, I'm going to share with you just for a minute. Um, a minute. Why? So, what made me finally get a will? I'll tell you what happened. My wife and I. This was many years ago. My wife and I went to dinner with another couple, and I'd never met the wife before, but I knew she was a trust and estates lawyer. That's the people who do wills. Okay, and so it came about in conversation that I didn't have a will. And I was bracing myself for the you need a will, you need a will, you need a will. But that's not what she did. She did something very different. This is what she did. She said, okay, you don't have a will. Obviously, I do wills. I'm a trust and estates lawyer. Let me ask you a couple of questions, though, because I understand you. My husband talks about you all the time. You are, as I understand, you're not just a lawyer. You're something of a small business guru, correct? Yeah, that's right. And when you give talks, to your small business audiences, around the country, you do talk about the need to have a succession plan, right? They need to have some get hit by a bus. Who's going to take over your business? You got to give some thought to that. Whatever. Yeah, we do it all the time. He goes, well, let me just ask you a rhetorical question. What would happen, if you were to get hit by a bus going home tonight, from this dinner, and word got out that the great Cliff Ennico, the great small business guru, died without a will? How would that affect your credibility? Would your books and tapes and all the stuff that you're doing still have market value if that ever happened? You know, I never thought of it like that before. I never thought of not having a will as being an information, expert or an influencer or whatever. My credibility is everything. Anything that weakens my credibility in my viewers' eyes is something I am very concerned about. So, the minute they did this, let me tell you, she did a very effective job here. Not only did I ask her to do my will, I also wanted her to do the will that night at the dinner table before I was afraid to get into my car to go home, because now she had made me aware that she made me feel that fear right there in the present moment. Very effective job. We're still friends, to this day, to this sort of thing. So this is the way this is how you sell things. And I have a whole video, by the way, on YouTube. If you're interested, go to YouTube and type in Cliff Ennico, how to sell. I have a 1 hour, a little bit more than an hour video. It's one I did about 10 years ago, but it's still getting views. I've got over almost 400,000 views on YouTube on this one video on how to sell anything to anybody. And it builds on what I just said in the last 5 minutes. Okay. Question 4. Okay, so we're a third of the way through. What media? We're still on marketing, by the way. You notice this? Marketing is the essential business skill. There are 3 essential business skills. There's selling, there's negotiating, and there's bookkeeping. If you know how to do all 3 of those, you have all the talents, the technical skills that you need to be a successful entrepreneur. And the most important one is selling. If the customer doesn't buy anything, That's not a business. If you're doing something and nobody's buying what it is you're doing, that's a hobby. That is not a business. Okay. What media will I use to reach my target markets? Okay. So you have a list of customers now, their fears and passions. You got a list of ideas of products or services that will directly and immediately appeal. You can sell these things. You'll be able to make them feel the fear, the passion in the present moment so that they'll buy from you and not somebody else. Now you just got to figure out, well, how am I going to get the message across to these people? What is my advertising and promotion plan going to look like? And here we have to go kind of back to question one. If you know your customers well enough, you should not only know what they buy and why they buy, but you're also going to know how they buy. Are they readers or are they visual people? Lawyers, let me tell you, are readers. We do not believe anything is real until we see it in black and white in printing. So that's why years ago when I ran a little publishing company, I wrote books and lectures and webinar seminars. Back then there were no webinars. This was pre-internet, on for career advice for young lawyers. Basically, we were a legal career information company, is what we were. And I mean, whenever I did a new program, I mean, I always made sure to send, and make sure whenever I did like direct mailings or whatever, I always included a nice detailed glossy brochure of the cover of the book, the table of contents, biographies of the authors, all this stuff, because lawyers want that information. We want detail. We're actually one of the few people in the world you can sell to by talking down your products or services and telling us what's wrong with them. Well, here, I got this software product, Mr. Lawyer, that I'm trying to sell you and your firm. Now, you should know it does A, B, and C. It does not currently do D, but we can do a customized version for your firm that will do D, but it's an extra fee, obviously, because we're going to have some consulting time getting it to do D for you. That is how lawyers like to be sold. This is how we tell you when you ask us for advice, we give you the pros and cons. Here's the strengths of your case. Here are the weaknesses of your case. And we want to be sold exactly the same way. That's lawyers. Now, let's say we're selling to teenagers. We got a product or service we think teenagers are going to like. Okay. Are you going to send a teenager a big glossy brochure with all kinds of details about it? The answer is no. They're not going to read it. They're going to smoke it. That is what they're going to do. Teenagers are not into that. But who do teenagers listen to, by the way? They don't listen to somebody who looks like me. They listen to other teenagers. So what I have to do, if I got a product or service that I'm trying to sell, I gotta somehow get buzz going in the local high school, in the local community, where teenagers are talking to each other about, hey, there's this cool new band that's going to be playing at the club Saturday night. Renegade Lawyers. It's a metal band. Isn't that a great name, by the way, for a band? By the way, Renegade Lawyers, and especially a metal band. I think that'd be a great name, Renegade Lawyers, and they're really cool. This is how you get teenagers talking to each other. That's the way you have to do. You have to be very good at buzz marketing and that kind of stuff. And also, too, you have to get teenage influencers involved these days on Instagram, TikTok, and these kind of places, because that's the people that are selling to these people, not somebody who looks like me. Anyway, are they readers or visual? Are they detail oriented, or they just want the big picture? Do they like flash? Do they like glitz? Or just the facts. Too many lawyers I know make this mistake. They put their photo on their business card. And I really don't like that, because let's face it, most lawyers have faces that will frighten small children. But more importantly than that, nobody cares what a lawyer looks like. All they care about are, can you do the job? Can I afford you? Those are the questions. So, if you're a lawyer, all your marketing should be driven to answering those two questions. Are they Gen Z or millennials? The reason that I raise this, by the way, with a smiley face, it's not that I'm not going to get into any kind of generational conflict type stuff in this program. But the thing you have to know about Gen Z, millennials, they are hooked on their phones. If you are not on their phones, you are not reaching that demographic at all. So if you have a product or service that you're selling to younger people, say first-time homeowners, you're a realtor, whatever, you got to get an app. You got to get on their phones and get into their face that way, or else you're not reaching that generation at all. Okay, so those are now. By the way, we're almost halfway done. We're over halfway done, and all we've talked about is marketing, because that is the most important piece of the 12 questions. If you make it to question 5, you're well on the way to having a successful business plan. Now we have to shift gears and talk about our competition. Okay, a lot of great ideas out there that will sell to a lot of different kinds of people, but if the competition is too fierce, you will not succeed. They will drive you into the ground. Okay, here's how you answer question number 5. I use this as a 2x2 matrix that I've developed, and I'm very grateful that somebody actually made this into a graphic for me, because for years I tried to lecture this and it was impossible. All of the competitors that you will encounter fall into four categories. They are competitors will either be direct competitors or indirect competitors. Now, in order to answer these, who is a direct or an indirect competitor, you have to go back to the marketing questions. Your competitors are not determined by what the product or service is. They're determined by who the customers are. Somebody with exactly the same product or services that you have, but they're targeting a different market, that is not a competitor. Someone who has got something different than what you're doing, but they're targeting the same people and the same fears and passions that you are trying to tackle, that is a competitor, even though their product or service doesn't look anything like yours. And I'll give you some examples. Let's say, for example, that I want to start a pizza parlor and I want to do it in my local commercial strip, which is Black Rock Turnpike here in Fairfield. There are 6 pizza parlors currently on Black Rock Turnpike. Those are my direct competitors. They're looking to sell, fast food. They're looking for people that are hungry for fast food, and their delivery is pizza. Their product or service is pizza and other Italian street food. Okay, that is what they are doing. That's what makes them a direct competitor. They're targeting the same people, the same fears and passions, using the same or a similar product or service. But competitors do not have to be direct. They can be indirect. An indirect competitor is someone who is targeting the same customers, the same fears and passions that you are trying to reach, but they're using a different product or service. So if I'm doing a pizza parlor on Black Rock Turnpike, the 6 pizza parlors that are already there are my direct competitors, but the Chinese takeout place across the street might be an indirect competitor. Now, their menu doesn't look anything like mine. They're doing ramen and all this stuff. I'm doing pizza. But if you're in the market for a quick fast food lunch, you have a choice. You can either get an egg roll or a slice of pizza. That is your choice. So to some extent, we are competitors, even though our products don't look anything like each other. Okay, that's the difference between a direct and indirect competitor. But here's the other thing. We also have to talk, when we talk about competitors, we have to talk about timing. An actual competitor, an actual competitor is somebody who is in the marketplace today. So if I start up a pizza parlor on Black Rock Turnpike, the 6 pizza parlors that are already there are my actual competitors. They're already out there. They're selling pizza. They're marketing all throughout town with those flyers that nobody reads. Those direct mail flyers. They're already there. But we can't just stop there. We have to think about potential competitors as well. These are people who are not in the market yet, but they could easily get into the market. And here's the key. If they did get into the market, they would crush me. These are mostly people who are much bigger than me, people with economies of scale that can provide a much greater range of products and services than I could ever possibly hope to do. A big box retailer is a very good example. Let's say, for example, that or a chain restaurant chain. Let's say that I'm doing this pizza parlor and I find out that Olive Garden is going to be opening up, down the street from me. I mean, this is not just some local, mom and pop doing a pizza parlor. Okay, this is a full service restaurant with a full bar, full liquor list. They have over 150 items on their menu. They have the unlimited pasta bowl and all that kind of stuff. They can do stuff which I cannot do as a little, pizzeria, local pizzeria with a couple of 100 square feet of space. I cannot compete with this. If I find out that Olive Garden is coming down the street, that is an existential crisis for me, and I may have to shut down my business if I feel that I cannot compete with that. So let's go down these 4 lists. Who are these people? Okay, the 4 categories of competitors. First category, we call them the enemies. These are direct competitors. They're doing exactly the same product or service that you're doing, and they're actually in the marketplace. Think the 6 pizza parlors that are already on Black Mark Turnpike. They're the enemies. If I'm going to succeed with this 7th pizza parlor, I got to figure out ways to crush these people and get an advantage and a leg up over them. Maybe my location is a bit better. Maybe I have some items on my menu that they don't have. Maybe I have a 5-star chef or a reputation because I got pizza parlors elsewhere that are very popular. If you live in Connecticut, Pepe's Pizza and Sally's Pizza. These were 2 pizzerias that used to compete across the street from their other in Worcester Street in New Haven, Connecticut. They are now branching out and setting up restaurants because of the name recognition. Okay, I mean, they're not any bigger than a normal pizzeria, but because of their name recognition, they get business. An indirect competitor that is actually in the marketplace, we call them the substitutes. Think of butter versus margarine. Think of the Chinese takeout place versus the pizza parlor. That's what we're talking about here. Someone who's targeting the same market, the same fears and passions, but using a different product or service. Now we have to focus on the potentials, the people that are not in the marketplace today. A potential competitor who's not in the marketplace yet, but if they did could be a direct competitor of mine. I like to call them big boxes. Think of big box retailer, Olive Garden, franchises can be very difficult competitors to deal with. Now, there are also mom and pop. The franchisees, the people who buy the franchise, are local moms and pops running a small business, usually with a limited amount of space, but they're because they're part of a national franchise chain, they've got national marketing and advertising support. They all contribute a certain percentage of their revenue each month to a marketing fund, and that marketing fund is used to buy TV ads and radio ads and all kinds of crazy marketing that you, as an independent, cannot possibly compete with. So I view franchises as very compelling. Even though they're somewhat mom and pop, I consider them very compelling competitors. And last but not least, the indirect a potential competitor who, if they got into your marketplace, would be an indirect competitor, the indirect competitors of the future. Now, are we starting to get a little philosophical here, a little metaphysical? The answer is no. These can be the most compelling competitors that you have. In fact, I'll share with you, I shut down my self-publishing business in the early 2000s because I saw what was happening in this box and I didn't like it. Okay. These are the paradigm shifters. These are the people or the things that are going to make your product or service obsolete. That's who lives in this fourth box. So when I was in the late 1990s as a self-publishing company doing books and tapes and stuff, what was my biggest competitor in this box? The internet. Sometimes the competitor is not a who, it's a what. It's a new technology that is coming around. AI right now would be an excellent example of this. There are a lot of business people shaking in their boots right now because they see that AI is going to make their business models obsolete, and they don't know how they're going to deal with that. So those are the four kinds of competitors that you have to deal with. If someone is not in this box, see, when people say to me, and they say all the time, Cliff, this business plan, I've looked around, there's no competition. There's no competition. They're not diluting me, they're diluting themselves here. What that means to me is they've looked in box number one and they didn't see anybody. And there may not be anybody in box number one. Your business plan may not have any enemies as such. But I guarantee if you look a little harder, especially your insecurity comes in handy here, your fear factor, you're being neurotic. Look for competitors. I guarantee you will find at least some in one of the other boxes. And those are the ones you have to have a strategy for dealing with them, which brings us to question number 6. We're halfway through. How is my product or service different from my competition? I've identified all these competitors now, but how am I going to defeat them? How am I going to beat them? How am I going to get a leg up on them? Okay. Unfortunately, I hear too many entrepreneurs, especially with service businesses, saying, well, I'm going to service the hell out of people. I'm just going to give them much better service than they'll ever get from a chain store or whatever. And I hate to tell you, in my experience of working with thousands of people who've done this and not done this, better service is not the answer. It doesn't work. People want the better service, but now let me make a very cynical comment. They don't want to pay for it. They want to get better service, but they won't want to pay anything. I cannot tell you how many prospective clients call me. I want to form an LLC. I want to form a corporation. They ask me all kinds of questions. I spend 10, 15 minutes on the phone with them. I give them the best answers I can. Okay, Cliff, let me get back to you. Let me talk to my partner and get back to you. And the next thing I know, they've gone on legal Zoom and they formed it for half the price of what I would charge for doing it for them. I cannot tell you how many people are there or that are out there like that. And it's gotten to the point now where I don't give out a lot of information now on early stage calls because I'm afraid of being. They actually have a name for that. They call it showrooming. Someone who walks around the showroom, asks a lot of questions, says they'll get back to you, but then they go online and they buy it from Amazon. For now that they got all the information they need, they can go on Amazon and get it for 20, 30% off, whatever. And let's face it, you've done it, and I've done it too. Okay, so we're talking reality here. It would help if your product is better, faster, whatever, but it doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's just a better, more convenient location. Sometimes it's who you are. Here's a tip. If you want to double your business, if you have an existing business out there, you want to double it, add 3 words to your website, your apps, your social media, your whatever. Se habla español. You put those 3 words onto your marketing media, you will double your business in no time. The Hispanic market is a huge underserved market in this country. The biggest obstacle is the language barrier. If you speak competent high school Spanish and can talk to these people, you can double your business by targeting them and saying, hey, I'm there for you. I care about you. I see you. Okay, that's important. Last but not least is your personality. I mean, what is my biggest competitive advantage. Geez, there's a ton of lawyers out there, and a lot of them do what I do. Some of them are even cheaper than me. I think what people tell me all the time is number one, I do a lot of things for a flat fee. I don't go by the hour. So you know what the bill is going to be up front. They like that a lot. I can do that. A lot of bigger firms can't do that, but I can. But the second thing is just my personality. They say I can relate to you. I can talk to you. Yeah, I don't feel like you're looking down at me. Lawyers have a nasty tendency to go like this and lecture to people. What, you got this problem? Oh, how could you be so silly? Didn't you know the IRS was going to come after you for that? People don't like to be talked down to at all. They don't. And lawyers have a nasty habit of doing that. People are afraid that lawyers are judging them. I'm not judgmental at all. I make a joke of it. I say, hey, you got a problem? Hey, great, that's good. I can help you with that. If you came to me with a problem I couldn't help you with, that's a problem. But I can help you with this one. Let's talk about this. Tell me more. What happened? So this is it. I try in my marketing to say you can talk to me without fear of being judged. That's just me. And the fact that I have a sense of humor too. Some people don't like the fact that I have a sense of humor, but then they're not my target customers. That's how you have to look at it. Okay. So now you've done this. You know have a marketing plan that works. You have a competitive strategy that is going to work. Now, believe it or not, the questions get less and less important as we go, which is one of the reasons why I only do a few minutes to them. We're going to race through these next few slides, not because I'm running out of time, although I am, but because they're not as important. Question 7. Now you have to build a winning management team. Question number 7. Do I need partners? Can I do this just me, myself, and I? Or do I need other people? And how do I pick the right ones? Okay. Here's how you have to answer this question. It's a this is not intuitive. What you have to do is you have to look at there are between, I would say, 5 and 7 essential tasks that must be done perfectly or extremely well in order for the business to be successful. Okay, and there's in most businesses, this is not going to be a long list. It may only be 2 or 3, or maybe 3 or 4, but it's not everything. But these activities are things that must be done perfectly or extremely well for the business to be successful. Obviously, in my law practice, I have to make sure that I'm not giving out bad advice. That my advice is advice that can be relied upon, that I know what I'm doing. I have a duty to be competent, but also, too, believe it or not, it's getting my bills out on time. I find that if I delay getting my bills out, my clients delay paying me. And I think that's true of every business, by the way, especially service businesses. In every service business, if you're not billing on a regular basis, you are leaving a lot of money on the table. I'm the last day of any calendar month, no matter how busy I am, I'm at my desk doing my bills. Because if I don't get those suckers out on time, my clients will take longer to pay me. And then I'm going to start having an accounts receivable problem with them, which I don't want. Identify those essential tasks and ask yourself, can I do them all without help? If the answer is yes, if you can do all the essential tasks yourself, then you don't really need a partner. You can do it yourself. If I mean, there may come a time when you don't want to spend a lot of time doing it, but that's your decision at that point. It's when you look at the essential tasks and you cannot do them all yourself. That's when you need a partner. So let's say you have a great product or service and you think that lawyers are going to buy it. You know how to make them. You know how to make them cheaply. You know everything else about the business, but what you really don't know is what motivates lawyers to buy. You need a partner who knows that marketplace. If you let's say you do have a product that you don't know the customer very well, but you're really convinced that there's something there. My advice to you would be hook up with a partner who really understands that market and can tell you, don't design it that way, make it purple, do it whatever, because that's what the market wants. You need a partner with that kind of knowledge. If you are doing a business that's going to require $1 million or more in capital to get off the ground, you need a financial partner, someone with that access to that kind of money who can help you, break even and get over the startup hurdle of the upfront costs of starting the business. Okay, here's the key: if you find that you cannot do everything yourself, find people who can just do those essential things and make them your partner, and then delegate everything else. As an owner of a business, you should be focused 100% on the essential tasks of getting the business done. Anything else is a distraction. This is why you hire lawyers and accountants, which brings us to question 8. To whom should I be delegating the non-essential functions of my business? You should have 5 people on your advisory board. A good accountant or bookkeeper, that's actually more important than a lawyer. A good lawyer, obviously somebody who does business law, not a litigator, not someone who fights battles in court, because let's face it, if you're being sued, the business is probably over and done with at that point. Lawsuits kill businesses. I have another YouTube video It's called Keeping Lawsuits at Bay. If you go to youtube.com, search for Cliff Ennico lawsuits in quotes, you'll get right to this 1 hour video on how to keep lawsuits at bay. A good insurance person, very important. Every business needs insurance of some kind. There's different kinds of insurance. I have a whole YouTube video on this. A good mentor or two, someone who's walked the walk, who's been there before, who knows all the stupid, dumb mistakes that people make and can prevent you from making them. A score counselor is an excellent place for that. By the way, you're in the right place to find those people. And then last but not least, your spouse or significant other. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should do business with your spouse. I could do a whole class on that. But your spouse should at least know enough about the business that they can at least help you figure out what impact the business is going to have on your personal life. Your lawyer, your accountant, your insurance person aren't going to think about this, but your spouse, if you have a Saturday morning golf foursome, for example, that you always look forward to, these are your closest friends in life that you play golf with, and you develop an idea for a great retail business. Well, let me tell you something. Saturday is the busiest day in retail. You're going to be working every Saturday. There goes your golf foursome. There goes those friendships. There goes your game of golf. I was a very avid sailor until I went to law school, and then there was just no time for it anymore. So I haven't sailed now in 40 years. I mean, this happens. You know, your business life changes your personal life. It has an impact. Anyone who's ever had a child knows how that changes your life overnight. It's the same when you start a business baby. It's the same thing. Question 9, where do you find money for the startup or early stage business? Okay, there are only two places where you can find money for a business that's just starting out. One is from revenue from your customers. If you've got a startup service business, for example, and you get your first customer, the work that you do, you bill it, you get paid. That's revenue. And by the way, when we're talking about revenue, we're talking about gross revenue. For those of you who have an accounting background, we start with the top line and work our way down. The other place where you can get money is capital from your own pocket and your partner's pockets. Initially, there may not be revenue from customers in the business. It's going to take a while for you to generate that business. If you're starting up a pizza parlor, for example, it's going to take a while to do your build out, develop relationships with suppliers, put together your menus, get your marketing in place. That's all going to take time. In the meantime, you're not making any money. So you and your partners have to have enough capital to get the business to survive past that point until you get to the point where you're generating revenue, what we call breaking even. So your home equity loans, credit cards, SBA loans, which your score counselor can help you get, friends and family loans, just don't make them partners unless you add any money that comes from you, your partners, your friends and family, bank loans, whatever. That is the startup capital that we call. And these are the only two places where the money comes from. If you don't have enough money, coming from these people to get you to the point where you're breaking even and becoming cash flow positive, where your revenue exceeds your expenses each month, then you need a financial partner with deep pockets who can help you get there. Question 10, will this business make money? Big businesses are all about earnings and profits. Small businesses are all about cash flow. Is there enough money in the bank at the end of the week after paying all my expenses that I can go out to dinner with my spouse on a Saturday night? That's what small businesses are all about. You need to do some cash flow projections, and it's really very simple. Take a spreadsheet. Those of you who are old enough remember the old the accountant's pads with the boxes and stuff like that. Of course, now it's an Excel spreadsheet probably that you're going to use or some other spreadsheet program. Project your startup and ongoing expenses for the next 12 to 18 months. Create an Excel spreadsheet with a little income statement. Income from A, B, C, D, whatever your sources of revenue are. Then expenses, A, B, C, and D, and project them going forward for the next 12 to 18 months. Okay, because that's really that most small businesses will usually break even if they're successful within 12 to 18 months of the day they first open their doors. So project what your expenses. Be ruthless about this. Be very cynical about this. Don't just, don't put in things like legal and accounting fees. Whenever I look at a client's cash flow projections, one of the things they leave out is professional service fees, including my fee. So I got to make sure that's in there somewhere. Once you are comfortable that you've done this right, multiply each figure by 50 to 100%. Why? Because you're going to overlook things. You're going to miss things. Things always cost more than you think they will, especially in an age of inflation, which we're living in right now. It's getting a little bit better, but we still live in an inflationary era right now. Build in a fudge factor. is there. Then look at the your spreadsheet and figure out the amount of revenue you will need each month to cover your expenses. And then last but not least, figure out how many units you need to sell to reach the target revenue amount. And is it feasible? So let's say, for example, I'm starting a law practice and I do make cash flow projections and I decide that in order to break even, I'm going to need 50 to do 50 LLCs or corporations a month as a startup lawyer. That is not going to happen. I might do 2 or 3 a month as a startup lawyer, but not 50. If my business plan shows that I need at least 50 sales a month, to break even, and I'm not going to get that for at least several years, that is not a valid business plan. Okay, now we're in the last part, questions 11 and 12. Now we're talking about the lawyer stuff. How can I protect my business and my personal assets from lawsuits? I just referred you to my YouTube video, which I warmly encourage you to watch if you go to Cliff Ennico Lawsuits, but I'll just give you the executive summary right now. There's 5 things you have to do. Form a corporation or LLC. By doing that, you're putting a wall up between your personal assets and your business assets. Buy as much insurance as you can afford, because even with a corporation or LLC, and people don't realize this, your business assets are still subject to attack by plaintiffs, by judgment creditors. So get as much insurance as you can afford. Put disclaimer language in all of your contracts and legal forms, your website, just like I did at the beginning of this program. Here's what I'm not going to do. Make sure your clients and customers are aware of that. Fourthly, consider transferring assets into your spouse's name. I don't always recommend this because you're putting a lot of stress on that marriage by doing it, but it could work. A lot of professionals, when they first hang out their shingles, they put all their assets in their spouse's name. Just be aware that if you do that, and if you ever get divorced, you're not only going to be without a spouse, you're also going to be without a house. Okay, just remember that. You're going to be homeless. I'm going to see you on the side of I don't want to see one of my clients on the side of I-95 with a sign saying, "We'll do whatever for food." I do not want to see that ever. Last but not least, don't do business with crazy people. If someone comes along like a wackadoodle, they probably are. Trust your gut. You shouldn't be doing business with them. Then last but not least, how do I deal with taxes? Answer: hire a good bookkeeper or accountant. Don't try to do this yourself unless you are a tax professional. If you are a CPA or an accountant, if you have that background, do not do this yourself. The laws are very complicated here, very easy to make mistakes. Even CPAs make mistakes in this area. You want to have somebody there who's doing this for you. That's a non-essential activity. It's got to be done, but it's not something that's so essential that you should be doing it yourself. It's a classic example of a non-essential function that must be delegated to someone else. Register with Connecticut Department of Revenue Services if you're in Connecticut for income, sales, use, and other business taxes. If you're in another state, you usually have to register with your state tax authority. If you're for sales tax and stuff like that, know the state taxes that apply and make sure you're registered for them, and then just keep good records. Okay, so we're pretty much done. Again, I could have done an hour on each of these slides. I see we got a bunch of questions. We'll try to tackle a couple. These are some of my best-selling books, and this, if you want to try to reach out to me, this is how you get a hold of me. So we have a few minutes left, Bob. Let's see if we can tackle at least a couple of these
Okay,
questions now.
that's great. Thanks, Cliff. As you noted, we're going to use the rest of the time for Q&A. And we'll take as many as we can to the top of the hour. But if you have one, please use the Q&A button, and it's generally in the lower part of your screen. Our first one is from Rachel, and Rachel is asking, and I got clarification on this from her. Can this process be done by oneself, or do you have to build a team to answer these 12 questions?
Okay. Well, as I said in my answer to question 7, okay, if you can do it yourself, then you don't really need partners. But let's say, for example, that you do this and you get stuck on question 6 or whatever, any question. Okay, you got to keep going with it. You don't move on to question 7. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is jumping around among the questions, because that's how you get confused and that's how you make bad decisions. What you want to do when you get stuck on a question is do everything you can to get the answer. And if you can't get the answer yourself, start talking to people, because maybe they have the answers that you don't. And maybe that's a sign that you should bring that person on as a partner, because they have an essential piece of this business that you do not have in your brain capacity. That's a good way to find out if you need a partner. If you get stuck on a question and you can't answer it, somebody else may have the answer. So that's a very short answer to a very difficult question.
Could I just make and I think that would be an opportune time to maybe go to your score counselor as
Yeah,
well, who might be able to help you through some of these questions.
seriously, SCORE is a wonderful resource. By the way, did we mention it's free? You don't pay anything for this? This is subsidized by the government, by the SBA. I mean, this is one of the reasons you pay your taxes or something like this. Get to know a score counselor. Find someone. They will help you find someone. It may not be somebody nearby. It may be somebody you have to schlep to get to, but they know people who have done this before, whatever the business is. Get the advice from them. Exactly. So, I mean, I would like to know, does SCORE have some lawyers, for advice here? I mean, there are lawyers who are SCORE counselors. Some of them are retired. And when you're a lawyer and you retire, you take out what's called a tail policy for malpractice purposes, which prevents you from actually giving legal advice to clients. So it's a great place to go for legal advice. But Bob, I'll let you answer this question because it's really a SCORE question. But be careful, because you really should be talking to a lawyer who is licensed to practice and who is still able to give you the advice you need.
I would just reemphasize that, yes, some of our SCORE volunteers are lawyers, but they're not giving advice in a legal capacity. So they're giving advice and mentoring. So as Cliff says, if you need legal advice, you need to go to a practicing lawyer.
Yeah.
Just the second part of that, Cliff, maybe is for you. I would like to know if a trademark name can be different from the LLC name registration.
Oh, the answer is yes, it can. In fact, that's very common. When you buy a Whirlpool washer dryer or something, you don't buy from the Whirlpool company. You buy from whoever the company is that owns the Whirlpool trademark, is all it is. No, in fact, I think it's a very bad idea actually to actually name your company and your product the same thing, because sooner or later those two things are going to want to go different ways. Also, I mean, franchises are very good about this. Franchises will not let you use the name, the trademark, as part of your company name. They will not allow you to do that. So my advice is to simply keep them separate. The trademark should be immediately recognizable. It should be something that how can I say it? It should be easy to remember. It should be, I mean, I actually do a whole class, believe it or not, for SCORE. I think I'm going to be doing it in the first quarter next year on dealing with trademark issues. We haven't set the dates yet, but I usually do a 3-part program. This is mostly for creative entrepreneurs, people in the arts and stuff like that, who are engaged in creative businesses. But I'm actually going to be doing programs next spring. One will be a program sort of like business for artists. The second one is a program on copyright, and the third is a program on trademark law. I think if you look back enough in the archives, you might see I did it a couple of years ago for SCORE. I haven't done it recently, but you may find it in the archives on the SCORE website. But I have a whole hour talking about trademarks, the do's and don'ts, what you try to stay away from, and stuff like that. But the short answer is keep the names separate, if you possibly can.
Okay. We'll just squeeze one more in here from Veneva. I'm starting a small boutique tour business. What might be my indirect / potential competitors? Maybe you want to go first. I maybe add some to that too, Cliff.
Well, if you're starting like a travel agency or something like that, a business for tourists, obviously all of the websites, that do travel stuff online. I'm not thinking of the names offhand, but Expedia, not Expedia, that's a credit union agency, but there's some websites that do a lot of this. They're your biggest indirect competitors. I mean, they're not giving one-on-one advice. They're doing more canned advice with computer. And by the way, AI is going to that's a business that is very much threatened by AI right now, because I mean, I can go to ChatGPT and say, "Get me the best price on a Caribbean cruise that goes to these specific islands," and it will do that in 5 seconds. That's a business that's going to be very disrupted by AI. As far as I saw somebody say about which state are you in, I mean, technically, I'm admitted to practice in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, but I work with businesses around the country. There are certain things that I am allowed to do in other states without being, licensed to practice law there. But there are certain things I can't. So, for example, if you are in Florida, I certainly could help you set up an LLC or a corporation. That is something that you don't even need to be a lawyer to do. I can certainly advise you on business contractual matters, but I can't really help you buy a house or do a will in Florida. Those are the kind of things that under Florida law, you need to have a law degree, you have to be admitted to practice there. So the short answer is ask me the question. If I cannot help you, I have a database of lawyers in all 50 states. I can find you somebody local, who can help you for something that I myself cannot do.
That's great. Unfortunately, we are out of time for questions. Just as a reminder to everyone, The session has been recorded and the materials will be available within the next day or so on our website under on-demand webinars. Our next live webinar is 2 weeks from today, December the 3rd, and the topic is SBA 101 with Selena Jacobs presenting. And again, you can find more specifics on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. If you want to take advantage of free counseling, you can use the link that we showed earlier on the screen, or just go and click on the Request a Mentor button on our website. And if I could ask you to please fill out your evaluations that are being sent at the end of the webinar, they're very helpful to us. And on behalf of SCORE, thank you to everyone for attending today. And in closing, a big special thank you to Cliff for presenting today. And enjoy the rest of your day, and everyone. Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you, Bob, as always, for having me. It's always a pleasure, even after 45 years.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.